Cool. So, hi friends, good evening and welcome to another session of an open dialogue where we talk to passionate individuals about their journey, about the work that they do. And for this evening, joining us is Darshana. So, a little bit of a brief about Darshana. So, she's a management professional, very much passionate about traveling, and also has some keen interest in classical Indian dance as well. But much more than that, at least for dialogues, she's a great friend of dialogues. And I'm not stressing enough, but yeah, she's one of the main pillars on which our travel community stands. So yeah, thank you for joining us this evening, Darshana.
Thank you, Ankit. That's a very generous introduction, I must say.
It is not generous enough, is all I can say. So yeah, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And so yeah, let's get started. Why don't you tell all our friends something about yourself?
Right. Hello. As Ankit already mentioned, I'm a management graduate. I've been working for the last 6 years in Bangalore. Prior to that, I had done my MBA in Indore, and until then, I had never stepped out of my hometown, which is Chennai. So all my schooling and undergrad happened there. And only after I left Chennai, I discovered my inclination for travel. It started off as an inclination, and then in the course of time, I think it became a passion or obsession or practice or a way of life. You could call it anything. So with all the changes in location, my classical dance did take a backseat. But I'm happy that I stay associated with it in my own way, more as an audience who appreciates the language of Bharatanatyam rather than a performing artist. And Bangalore has got a great performing culture. So that way it's been good over here. And I first visited Dialogues in Jan 2018. I distinctly remember my very first event that there was Dialogues with Travel, of course. And tab se there's been no looking back. Almost every month, unless I'm not in town, I guess I have always attended Dialogues with Travel because it's very addictive.
And I keenly remember because I think you travel to Chennai often. So it's always key. We have to let you know the dates well in advance so you can plan your Chennai travel, because every time it's like, last weekend I was in Chennai, then next weekend I'm going to Chennai.
Yeah, so after a while I started blocking time for DWT, I mean for Dialogues with Travel. And I remember there were occasions when I used to attend the event on Saturday and then take a train on Saturday night and go to Chennai for a day and come back because of some urgent requirement there.
Yeah. Nice. So yeah, let's talk about your travel journey then. So currently, obviously, pre-COVID times, how much do you generally used to travel?
Okay, so I think starting from 2017 or so, I started making it a practice to travel at least once a month.
Okay.
And I didn't find it very difficult because if you plan in advance, you can make it happen, even if you have a full-time job. It just requires planning, aligning your manager, your team, your stakeholders in advance, and and weekend. I'm not talking about like 1 week long vacation every month. I can't even afford that. Thankfully, because I'm in Bangalore, there are lots of places around
Yeah.
Within Karnataka, Kerala, everything is just an overnight's journey away. So I normally abuse the long weekends.
Yeah.
And thankfully, because my hometown is just Chennai, I don't waste my vacations or leave on going home. So that's just a weekend trip for me. And the actual long weekends, and in fact, even Diwali, which may sound blasphemous for a lot of people, I actually use that for travel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you find there is less tourists during Diwali because everyone is at home?
I think so. I had an experience like that. I think in 2017,
Okay.
I had taken a trip during Diwali, and I was very surprised to find that there was hardly anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long has it been for you? Like, how long have you been traveling?
So I think when I was in campus, which was 2012 onwards, 2012 to 14, it was just like attending other college festivals, other institute symposium. I mean, not symposiums, like events, cultural events, or business B school events, etc.
Yeah.
And luckily for us, as a part of our syllabus, as a part of our course, we also had a 4-credit program for a Himalayan expedition, like Himalayan trek.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, so and in our first year, we also had a rural immersion program in Madhya Pradesh. So these were like week-long, approximately 1 week long trips that we had both years. So I think the foundation was laid there. And
nice.
Since then, I think I've traveled to over 150 places in maybe 130 to 150 places in India.
Wow, that's a good number. So generally, people, generally always when you ask someone who's done an MBA, there's a question. Okay, so what did you get out of the MBA, or what did you take away from the MBA? I guess you have a great story to tell there.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
You got your passion of travel, discovered your passion of travel.
Thankfully for me, also my job was such, being in the retail industry and in marketing. Retail marketing required me to travel to different parts of India at least once a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, that used to be a mandate for us, that we visit the market and be closer to customers, consumers. Yeah. So that's been a boon for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, so there's a general perception, I guess, where people always complain ki, I can't find time to travel. I have a full-time job. I don't know how to travel. I can't. It's not just about the time. It's about budgeting as well. So how do you manage to travel almost every month, despite having a full-time job? How do you manage to create time for that?
Right. So first I'll talk about making time for it, and then I'll come to the budgeting part of
and
it.
I've read a couple of your blogs also. You're a big proponent of planning your trips. Yeah. So it will be great if you can share some of your experience and how do you do these things.
Right. Okay. So thankfully, because of my management background, I had a chance to work under CXOs in my strategy profiles. So in these profiles, I've seen the difference between a well-planned team, a team which plans in advance. It's usually top-down. Okay. So when the leader is also a believer of planning, then the entire it trickles from the top. Okay. And everybody is able to align their calendars in advance. There is not much of firefighting happening. And so that way we were able to foresee which are the weekends we need to earmark for maybe a marketing launch or any consumer promotion activity and so on. In most cases, weekends, we would have work, okay?
Okay.
But if we keep our managers informed, our stakeholders informed that you're going to be unavailable during weekend, this particular weekend, one weekend in a month, you're unavailable because it's a pre-planned trip, then ensure that you also close things before that, or you at least have a backup in case your work is indispensable. Anyway, you can be available over calls. And some of the productivity hacks or smart hacks which helped me was having all my files on cloud drive, be it OneDrive or Google Drive. Actually, these days, most organizations have this. So even on the go, if somebody asked me for a file, I could just open it on my phone and send it right away. True. So it did not affect, I didn't have to like carry my laptop around whenever I traveled. So these are minor things. The more important thing I would say is to draw boundaries between your work and your personal life. Don't carry your personal life to work, don't carry your work to home. And when it comes to, so that actually also helps you have richer decision making, and your quality of decision making goes up. You don't get burned out. Mentally, you're not constantly under stress, and travel is a good reliever of stress. Yeah.
And then there's always that one weekend a month that you're always looking forward to.
That's true. Yeah. Correct.
Okay, that weekend is coming up. Let me finish up all the work that I have. And as you rightly said, if all the stakeholders are informed well in advance, then it's a good enough, I guess, I'm missing the word, but at least if everyone is informed, then everyone works accordingly.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about alignment. Yeah. One more thing is you'll have to make choices in line with your priorities. If this is very much your priority, then if you're taking up a job which requires you to be available on a weekend, then that would be stupid. So you will have to also make choices in your life. Don't take any random role that comes your way. You may have to turn down certain offers even if it pays you a lot. Because it's not in line with what you want from your life.
True.
Yeah. Now coming to the other aspect, which is budgeting.
Yeah.
Normally, if you travel every month, it doesn't require you to have thousands of bucks in your bank account allocated towards the travel. It's about so you have three major heads for travel. Okay, which is the intercity transportation. Which would be rail or flight or bus. Second thing would be your local transport and sightseeing. Third thing would be food. Okay. So all this, if you're doing by yourself and you're not going with a travel company, I generally try to plan my own travel because obviously when there is a third party company involved, they do have a margin. And it goes as per a set schedule and it doesn't give me flexibility. So for intercity travel, I normally opt for rail because that is the cheapest mode of transport. Secondly, I forgot to mention accommodation. Yeah. Sure. So within the city, I normally take a bike around. I take a rental bike instead of taking a taxi or an auto and hiring it, because very often you would go from one end of the city to another end when you're going around places and seeing places. So having a bike that you can zip around with helps. So that is with respect to transportation. Now coming to the second big head, which is accommodation. I am a huge fan of Zostel specifically, and any hostel chain. Okay. So hostel chains are you get to connect with like-minded people, and it doesn't pinch your pocket. In fact, you come back to your room and it's a safe space. I personally opt for hostels also because I feel safer there as compared to say a hotel.
Okay.
And sometimes I also opt for Airbnbs where hostel chains are not available because I again have reviews that I can check. And then coming to food, keep it simple. If you want fine dining, Bangalore is a great place. If you're traveling, then eat local.
Okay.
Especially when you're talking about international trips. International, I go pretty cheap. Especially because I'm a vegetarian, I try to carry some ready to eat mix, or sometimes also I go to the extent of carrying a mini electric cooker with maybe I just buy chawal over there.
Okay.
These are things I've done, or MTR ready to eat and things like that. If these are your major hits, if this is covered, and don't wait for the travel booking to happen for you to find money. So as a part of my financial planning as well, it requires meticulous financial planning. What I do is every month, there are 2 heads allocated for travel. One is shorter trips. Another is my fund creation for my annual big budget trip, which would be a week-long trip, which will obviously be a lot more expensive than my weekend trips. So it's almost like a SIP, so to say. I'm not talking about mutual funds, but it is a systematic investment plan, whichever instrument you choose.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about instruments over here, but that's the method for you to plan your budget as well.
So basically, travel helps you. One is have better communication throughout the organization, as you said, because it helps you plan out in advance. Because if you're planning your travel, you have to plan your work accordingly as well.
Yeah.
And secondly, as you said, while you are doing budgeting for your travel, it makes you more financially sound, not sound, but better planning in terms of
More
finance.
disciplined, financially disciplined. Yeah.
Discipline. So it's not just following your passion, but then it helps in some way, maybe subconsciously, a self-development happening at the same time.
Correct. Certainly, you evolve over the years from your travel experiences.
And do you generally travel solo, or you grab a couple of friends and then go?
It's actually a mix. So most often, my objective is just to go on the trip that I've planned.
Yeah.
I have learned it the hard way that it's not wise to count on friends. They may drop out anytime.
Yeah.
So I generally plan my trip, and if friends want to join, well and good.
Yeah.
They can join. But even if they drop out, I make my bookings such that they are fully cancelable. Cancelable, and they have a decent amount of refund in case of last minute cancellations, including flights. For my domestic flights, I typically go for fully refundable tickets, which is available on various platforms. So that permits me to keep my plans fluid as well.
Yeah.
And if friends don't join, I can shift it around, or I could, instead of a room that I've booked with my friends, or a cottage that I've booked with my friends, I could just opt for a single room as well. Or a single occupancy as well for myself. So I always have 2 options because it's cancelable, and there is closer to the date I can make my decision. One mistake that happens with respect to travel planning is you always wait for clarity.
Yeah.
And by the time you decide, the flight prices have already gone up.
Yeah.
So it is better to book your trip and cancel, because your cancellation cost is not much.
True.
Have plan A, plan B. You can switch between the 2, and that works out cheaper. I also sometimes travel with my family, my parents. They are
and as you said, if you book well in advance, then even the fully refundable prices are comparatively cheaper than booking last minute.
Certainly, yeah.
Makes sense. So like you mentioned before, you worked in the retail sector and traveled a lot because of work.
Yeah.
But which was your first solo trip apart from work, like for personal?
Yeah.
Which one was your first personal trip?
All right. All right. So my first solo leisure trip,
Yeah.
was during Diwali 2017.
Okay.
Is that right? 2017.
Yeah.
And I set off to. So it was a very last moment thing.
Okay.
So I could not be booking flights. I had a long weekend, I think 3 or 4 days, but I had to choose locations which doesn't require me to go by flight. So I booked something which is close by. I decided to go to spend some time in the western coast. That is Udupi, Mangalore, and then further south, North Kerala, Kasaragod district. So
Okay.
first stop being Udupi, and then Mangalore, and then Kasaragod. That was a hell of a varied experience. Yeah, I had a quite a strange and an eye-opening experience, especially for a first-time solo travel.
Okay.
So what happened was I had booked um, a JLR property in Udupi, and there was nobody. I was surprised to find there was no one apart from the staff over there. There was just
because of
one.
Diwali.
Sorry. Yeah,
Because of Diwali. Okay.
Diwali, yeah.
Nice.
There was just one other group of 4 people, 4 guys who had come by bike, and I was just sitting by the riverbank, and it was just a 1 day stay over there. So what I first did was I went to Agumbe, just like a day trip. Took the public bus, Karnataka bus, state bus, and that's an experience in itself. It works out inexpensive, and at the same time you go see places. The route was brilliant, and then I came back in the evening. I was sitting by the next morning. I was sitting by the side of the riverbank. I saw some wonderful wildlife creatures which I'd never seen before, like a really fluffy, cute Master Shifu kind of a animal, which turned out to be the giant Malabar squirrel.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked like a red panda or a Master Shifu from Kung Fu Panda. Yeah. So while I was sitting here, one of those, one person from the other group came and spoke to me, and it was just a normal chit chat. Both of us happened to be from Bangalore, which is a no-brainer. Anywhere you travel to on a long weekend in Karnataka or Kerala, you would most probably find Bangaloreans.
Yeah.
So we were just having a casual chat, and he mentioned his company name. I knew his company because they were my marketing agency, and he was surprised that someone knew his company's name. So I was like, yeah, I know, because we are having an ongoing project with you right now. And that weekend we were, I think the weekend that followed after that, they were also to deliver a project for us. So that way it was interesting. And I mean, he asked for my number. I provided my official contact number, and we just discovered, wow, it's a small world. You never know when you run into someone who's from within your network. And then we were talking about our projects, the work that they had done for my brand and things like that. Then I went back to Bangalore on Monday morning. I opened Google. I typed out his name, his full name, and his company name, because I wanted to find him on LinkedIn. I was surprised that he's from my agency. He has worked for my brand, but how come I had not interacted with him? I mean, I realized he was in a different division, not the client-facing division. He was working in the background. So anyway, so I wanted to look him up on LinkedIn, and I typed it out on Google. And I was shocked to find the results. You would not guess. So it said on the very first page, the results said, Bangalore techie arrested for morphing girl's picture.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, how can this be? And then I opened the article. It was indeed him. And I also managed to cross check with one of my friends who was a mutual connect. And turns out it's true. So I realized, irrespective of educational background or um, your I mean, he was in quite a senior position at the firm. So irrespective of all of this, back then the Me Too movement hadn't happened, but
Yeah.
even before all the Me Too movement happened, who you don't want to be associated with, or you don't want to be on talking terms with. Yeah.
True.
So thankfully,
And this happened on your first solo trip.
yeah, thankfully that was not. I mean, it didn't get any worse after that. It's
Okay.
been a clean record. Yeah.
Okay. So that's good to know.
Correct.
And
So
yeah, please.
yeah, there were some funny incidents as well which happened on the
Yeah, I'm
when-
sure every travel trip that anyone takes, there's always a story, I guess, and there's always positive and the bad. There could be
Yeah.
some bad sides to it.
Yeah. So this was I think it started off on this note. Of
Okay.
course, I didn't know it then.
Yeah.
Day 2 of the trip, I had booked an Airbnb.
Okay.
I think I had a knack for booking all the risky places on that particular trip. In hindsight, I realized whenever you book an Airbnb or something, it's better to look it up on Google Maps
Yeah.
using the Earth view or the satellite view. Okay. That way you know where exactly this place is located.
Okay.
So I knew that I was booking it in the outskirts, but I didn't know that it's in the middle of agricultural fields, like completely cut off from the rest of. I mean, it was quite isolated.
Okay.
I was going around by bike. So I took the bike in the afternoon from there. I decided to go to the beach, Marvante and all that. And when I was back, I knew it's going to be past sunset and quite dark. So around 8 p.m. I was getting back, and I had to get off the highway. And I knew if I have to act, I should act right now, because honestly, I was scared. I'm scared of dark roads. And just then I had also watched a horror movie.
Wow, what luck.
In one dark alley, suddenly there is one ghost in white dress who just appears with open hair in the middle of the road. So I located an auto guy at the diversion from the highway. So he was like, I mean, I told him the landmark, and I asked him if he could come up to the landmark, which is the Airbnb. He was like, sure, madam. किसी को वहाँ pick करना है क्या? Do you want to pick up someone over there? I said, no. And so are you going to come here? I said, no, I have my bike. And then he was like, डर लग रहा है क्या? Are you scared? And then there was no point hiding. I had to admit, yes. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't fake it any after that. So that was quite funny, and then went on further. Yeah.
But he helped you out, like he.
Yes. So he followed me, and that way I felt there was also better lighting because of the auto light headlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt safer.
There's always positive and negative, and all this happened on the same trip.
Yes.
Wow, what an interesting trip. Nice. So you did mention, I guess, about the eye-opening experience you had. And you did say that you do travel solo, you do take solo trips as well.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for like solo travelers, like especially for women and girls, like who want to travel solo or who do travel solo?
Right.
Some tips on like some things that they should be mindful of and some things they should avoid, etc.
Okay. So This is not to say that if you don't do this, you're not going to be safe.
Yeah.
But it is by general practice, it is considered safer that you do these things. And this is obviously not, you know, you could still have issues even if you follow these tips. But largely, I try and ensure I follow these things.
Yeah.
So, for example, the places I select, or the destinations that I select are always reachable by public transportation.
Okay.
I would not want to, especially because I'm traveling solo. One, because of the budget, and two, because of the safety aspect. I would not perhaps go to a place where I need to take a private taxi to get to that end destination.
Okay.
Which would perhaps be in the case of hill stations, if you don't have proper, or if you don't know the timings of the public bus, then you may end up booking a private taxi, or that's because you maybe it's lack of information.
Okay.
So I think my principle is travel like a local. When you're traveling solo, travel like a local. Especially because of the budget. So when you go to a place like Chikmagalur or Agumbe region, etc., most probably people would tell you hire a taxi and go to Agumbe. Hire a taxi from Udupi and go to Agumbe. But that's going to be expensive. So take a state bus. How do locals travel? They are not going to be spending thousands of bucks.
Yeah.
So I think traveling by public transport also is safer. Because you're not in a cab alone with an unknown person. And even if there's a situation of breakdown during odd hours, etc., even if there's a vehicle breakdown, you're not isolated, you're not alone. There are people with you. So that's how I decide my locations.
Okay.
Now coming to the accommodation aspect, I generally have a liking for like places where I can interact with locals or with fellow travelers. So hostels, because I can talk to fellow travelers. And Airbnb, because I can talk to the host.
Okay.
So in fact, in the Diwali trip that I mentioned, the Airbnb host suggested that on my way from Mangalore to Kerala, North Kerala, Kasargod, I could stop by a temple which has a vegetarian crocodile.
What?
So apparently in this temple, which is a Vishnu temple, there is a crocodile in the temple pond. So Kerala normally has temple ponds. And apparently that one does not have fish, or it is apparently vegetarian. So normally, if you look at blogs, etc., you would only know places which are touristy. For example, in on that particular trip, I'm sure I would have gone to. I mean, I did go to Bekal Fort, because that is where a song from the movie Bombay was shot. So you go to these touristy places, but those unpopular ones, or the Pani Puri Wala who is popular in that locality, you don't get to know unless you stay with a local. Or you hear from the locals. So for accommodation, I look at reviews and I try to avoid hotels. Both because of the pricing. Of course, there is OYO rooms and all that, which is not as expensive. But I would still be concerned about safety in such cases, because you never know. I mean, there could be a camera hidden, and that could happen anywhere. Even that's happened in Airbnbs as well. But that's where I guess some amount of reviews, etc., it helps you decide. And otherwise, certain default travel tips for everyone would be have a power bank. Don't go. I mean, like if you're going into area which you're not going to have signal all the time.
Yeah.
When you're on the move. There are obviously stretches where you don't have signal.
And I don't get signal in my home nowadays. Okay.
Yeah, I guess first thing we tell these days is, hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, true. So I think one thing that helps is to download all your locations, save your locations, have PDF of your tickets, accommodation, etc. Have them saved on the phone. Don't look for internet then. And send, when you're traveling solo, send your itinerary to someone. In fact, why just send it to one person? Send it to a bunch of friends. So that, in fact, I'm making a point to do it across time zones.
Okay.
So, I mean, at any given point in time, there is at least one person that I can reach out to, or to the extent of, I also give the contact numbers that they will, like my accommodation contact numbers, so that in case I go untraceable, they know where to reach. Obviously, there's not been an occasion where they have had to do that, but it's necessary that you follow these precautions and save your the entire area that you're traveling within. Like, for example, if you're traveling within Karnataka, download Karnataka on Google Maps, or just select the region and save it as an offline map.
Yeah.
That way, even if there's no network, you know where you are, or you know the way to your accommodation or the sightseeing destination and so on.
Fair enough point. So it's not just specifically for women, but some tips on whenever you're traveling solo. Travel, as she said, travel like a local. Use public transport as much as you can, and if you're traveling solo, it's always great if you live or if you're staying in a place where you can mingle with fellow travelers and get to know more about the place that you're in.
For women, I would say just go, trust your instinct.
Yeah.
When something is off, your antenna just goes up. Yeah. So trust that.
Nice. So now let's talk about the travel community that we have, and I guess you are probably the best person to talk about the Dialogues with Travel community. So I guess it started as a meetup. It's been almost 4 years now, or maybe 3.5. But the idea of starting Dialogues with Travel for us at Dialogues was mainly so that people can come and share their travel stories with fellow travelers, because as we had discussed during this chat, every time we travel, there's always a story around it. Maybe bad, maybe boring, maybe nice, but there's always a story.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to share those stories. So the idea of Dialogues with Travel was always just a very informal, casual platform where people can come and share stories. It had no intention for, getting a travel company on board and advertising travel or anything like that. It was very informal. Come together as a fellow traveler and share your stories. So that's how it started. And then obviously, it has evolved into a good community, into a good thriving community nowadays. So why don't you talk and let everyone know what Dialogues with Travel community is about?
Right. So like I said, Jan 2018 was the first time I attended Dialogues with Travel. And I think the topic was Northeast, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. I remember being awestruck by the kind of experiences that were shared. There was one member who said they were 4 bikers who had set off on a road trip, and they had a backup vehicle which was an SUV, and suddenly there was sudden rain. Okay, like unexpected, totally unexpected, while they were going up a mountainous or a hill road, and there was landslide, and I mean, things just escalated very quickly. Like people say,
Okay.
that escalated quickly. And there was a landslide, which was also almost washing away the SUV.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how bad it was. Obviously, that person was sitting in front of us in flesh and bone, so he made
Yeah.
it through. But the fact that such scary experiences happen, and he mentioned how army plays a huge role in these locations, in remote locations. They are the ones who help out locals and travelers like this when they get stuck. The next, so this was like my favorite experience that I recall from that event. The
Okay.
next one, I remember one person saying how he was traveling abroad solo, and he was held at knife point
Okay.
for money, for ransom.
Yeah.
And he tried to get that back, and he was not successful. And because he was like totally without not even a penny in his pocket, those guys actually felt sad for him, and they later on they met him at the bus stop where he was waiting and gave him some bucks to get to wherever he needed. So there is like a mixed narration as well. It's sad,
Yeah.
but then it's also funny.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds
I
like a
realized,
movie scene, actually.
yeah, so I realized every week, I mean, every month, whenever I attend this event, there is going to be some story experience that I hear, which I would otherwise not know from, like looking up online.
Yeah.
Because these are people in flesh and bone sitting in front of you and telling stories. You can have follow-up questions.
Yeah.
It's not, and first of all, to even pick out gems like this from blogs, you would be spending hours together.
Yeah.
And the whole vibe of it being a social space, it's not like a narration, not like someone is standing up there in front of a mic, and it's more like friends sitting around a coffee table and
Yeah.
just chatting up. It's a very relaxed setting, and that's what makes it special.
And because people are narrating, so I guess it brings authenticity as well compared to when
Correct.
if you're reading it up on.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. And in fact, very often we have also had members. So we have a Facebook community as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook group. So you can just look up Dialogues with Travel and select groups on Facebook to find Dialogues with Travel group.
Yeah.
So in this Facebook group, if there is any member who is so normally people who have attended DWT events, they become a part of the group, and in future, if they have any travel that they are planning,
Yeah.
they reach out to the group members over here, and there is I mean, a lot of people who are more than willing to provide very personalized recommendations for
Yeah.
that particular case. I mean, like that particular situation. In fact, we had one of our members who went on a trip, who planned his entire itinerary 100% based on the suggestions that he received from the group.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that
Like the
way,
suggestion you mentioned earlier, ki matlab, because people have traveled somewhere, they can tell you ki pani puri kahan pe khana hai,
exactly.
dal chawal kahan pe. Yeah.
So those are things that you get only from. I mean, I think to get it out of a blog, you'll have to search a lot.
Yeah.
So this is a ready source of individuals who share your same interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way it helps.
So that's where the community part comes in, I guess, where everyone is willing to help each other out.
Yeah, correct.
And I guess listen to each other.
Yeah, like-minded individuals. Yeah.
So for people who are watching us, I guess I'll just add to that. So we used to have Dialogues with Travel meetup every month. It was an offline meetup until March, until the COVID came, and then because of obvious reasons, we have moved it online. So now it happens every third Sunday of the month. Currently, we're doing it online through Google Meet, and we have one coming up on the coming Sunday, and the theme of this month is travel from home. And what is this theme about?
Okay, so obviously right now we can't travel, and while maybe technically you can in certain places, that's
Yeah.
not something we recommend.
Yeah.
So travel from home is basically sitting behind your laptop or your mobile. Instead of watching videos, hear stories which you don't get to listen to otherwise. So once again, we are bringing together members or non-members, people who have had even if you were traveling with your family as a child, I'm sure you had those strange experiences where your car broke down in the middle of the night, and you have stories to share.
Yeah.
So this is basically to get people to connect together online and share such one-off stories. And sometimes it's also supported by multimedia, that is audiovisual or pictures. So you sort of bring not just the location to life, you bring your travel experience to life.
Yeah. So people get to share their pictures and videos, whatever they took during their travel.
Correct.
They can share it with the group.
Yeah. So it's more like a screen sharing done.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, there we go. So from work from home, it's travel from home, basically. Just come out, share your travel stories, or just come and listen to some of the stories and maybe just reminisce about the days that were 4 months ago. And maybe when we get to that new normal where we can start traveling again, where we feel it's safer to venture out and start traveling. Yeah. So thank you so much, Darshana.
Thank you.
For talking to us today. It was great. We talked about various things, I guess. It was about started from how to plan your travel, how to budget about your travel, how to make sure to keep everyone, as you mentioned, all the stakeholders informed at work, so that you can find that time to travel. And then moving on to, I guess, some tips and tricks on, in case you're traveling solo, there's a few things maybe to keep in mind. And obviously you shared about your very eventful first solo trip during Diwali time.
Yeah.
And
quite a dhamaka.
Quite a dhamaka trip. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for sharing all the things about the Dialogues with Travel community as well. And in case someone wants to join, you can join the discussion. It's happening this coming Sunday, 19th at 4 p.m. And you can register yourself from our website, dialogues.space. So yeah, that brings us to the end of our chat this evening. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ankit. It's been a wonderful association with Dialogue so far, and it's going to continue. Look forward to more such events.
Yeah, and we should do this more often.
Yeah.
Chat to each other. I guess you're sitting in Bangalore and I'm in Delhi right now.
Right.
So while we can talk online, abhi virtually karte hain, and then hopefully we can meet soon.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.